Many times we think that conflict is wrong. Some people they think it's good also. Therefore, let us try to focus on transition of conflict thought. Transition of conflict thought. What is this transition of conflict thought? If we go through traditional management theories or theories in organizational behavior, or for a long time we believe that conflict is bad. There should not be any conflict in the organization, whatever be the organization. There should not be any conflict. Always there should be peace in the organization. We never encourage difference of opinion. This kind of thinking, we call it as a traditional view, traditional perspective regarding conflict. From this, as people they move, the human relations people, they viewed that conflict is a part of life. Conflict happens to be a part of life. There will be conflict in our life. Therefore, we need to accept this conflict. Whereas the third view that has emerged in the modern organization theory or modern management thought that conflict sometimes it does good to organization. Don't think conflict is always bad. This kind of view it is known as interactionist view regarding conflict. And they have gone to, I think, a step ahead. They started advocating if there is no conflict, let us try to generate conflict. So the third view says conflict is not only accepting the conflict, but sometimes when there is no conflict, we need to encourage conflict in the organization. But there should be a caution. And that caution is when you generate conflict, when you encourage conflict, you should have the ability to control that conflict, to contain that conflict, to resolve that conflict. So these are the three views regarding conflict transition or transition of conflict thought. Traditional view believe that there should not be any conflict in the organizations. Human relationist view, they believe that conflict happens to be a part of life. And the way the interactionist view started saying, it is not only a part of life, sometimes it does good to organization. So what we need to do is when there is no conflict, sometimes it is better to generate conflict also in the organizations. Now, based on the thinking of these people, what people they have started advocating, the relationship between conflict and outcome. What they are saying, if there is no conflict, if there is too little conflict, the performance will not be that much. Performance will be at a very low level. As you move, as you generate conflict, when conflict reaches the appropriate level or a moderate conflict, then the performance goes to the peak level. But when conflict becomes too much, it leads to burnout, rust out, stress, and all these things. And again, the performance falls or the outcome falls. Therefore, what they have advocated, a moderate level of conflict is always good in any organization, and that leads to a higher level of performance in the organization. And that kind of conflict, we call it as appropriate level of conflict. Now, what are the antecedents? Why these conflicts they arise? Once again, I'll discuss. I think, in a nutshell, but a little detail. Let us try to discuss why these conflicts they arise. The first reason why these conflicts they arise is incompatibility of personalities. Right? When personalities are not compatible, conflicts will come. Then the second reason, I think when I'm telling these things, I think you are reminded of several people why there's a conflict between those people. Okay? Incompatible personality. The second reason I can tell you is the value system itself is different. The values, the way you are brought up, the way you want to reach greater heights, the way you want to get promotions, the way you want to settle in life. I think our value system, they have undergone change. Therefore, the problems or the conflicts that are cropping up in the organization. Then we can also say that there is no clear job boundaries. Sometimes these job boundaries they are overlapping. When they overlap, or when the job boundaries are not clear, I think conflicts they do arise. They do arise. You may consider this one as the example which I'm giving as insignificant, but I used to observe this particular thing in my college. There were two people. One used to do dusting, the other one used to do sweep. Okay. Normally, what we do or what happens, once the sweeping work is over, then the dusting work will be done. There was one attender, and her job was dusting. And she used to stay away from a faraway place. Early in the morning, she has to come. Therefore, she wanted to do the dusting job in the evening itself. If the sweeping is over. She used to wait and wait and wait and wait. And the person who is supposed to sweep, he never used to sweep. So what she used to do even then, okay, she used to do this dusting job. The moment she completes the job, this man is to start sweeping work, or this person is to start the sweeping work. And we used to find lot of conflict, and the way they react and all these things. The reason is these jobs are interconnected, they overlap, they are interconnected basically, then they overlap. And in some organization, who should do what they should do, it is not clearly defined. Recently, I was talking to someone and I told them, why don't you give them a clear job description? You can avoid this sort of conflict. And their style is, sir, if I give this kind of clear job description and all those things, they will stick to that only. They will not do the other jobs. So whatever it is, when jobs are interconnected, when jobs they overlap, when jobs are not boundaries are not clear, conflicts they arise in the organization. Maybe now you are reminded of one or two instances that were there in your organization. Then competition for limited resources. You can talk about land, you can talk about water, you can talk about the limited financial resources. I think when I was in college, the competition for limited resources, especially for library funds, a lot of conflicts used to be there. Conflict used to be there. Competition for limited resources, limited fund. library fund that has to be distributed among a few departments. Then each one used to, there used to be a lot of conflict, and each one used to do a sort of lobbying to get more fund to their respective department. At a higher level also, you can see these things. Then interdepartment, intergroup competition between two departments, between two groups, the competition will be there, conflict will arise. Then many times the conflicts will come because of inadequate communication. Sometimes I'll put it the other way also. Some people, they want to make things very, very clear. They over communicate, and the problem that they get, it is called information overload. Sometimes that problem comes. Sometimes when you do not have a proper communication, inadequate communication, I think conflict will arise. Then interdependent tasks, when your task and my task, I think I was giving that example, or interdependent problems will come. Then organizations, sometimes they become too complex. I think they become so interdependent. Things are not clear. They are not simple. At that time, conflict, there is a possibility for conflicts to arise in the organization. Then we talk about unreasonable, unclear policies in the organization. Some of the policies, it could be relating to anything. It could be relating to purchasing. It could be relating to recruitment. It could be relating to finance. See, when these things are not clear, when they are unreasonable, when the standards are not up to the mark, when rules and regulations you find them unreasonable, you get into this sort of conflict. Then unreasonable deadlines or extreme time pressures. I did not tell you, they dump a lot of work and they say by tomorrow morning the work has to be done. I know in several places what happens from 10 o'clock to almost 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. They won't assign you proper work, and just before when you are leaving the office, they dump a lot of work and they say the work has to be done, and you get irritated. Lot of conflict that arise in the organization. Then collective design making, collective decision making, sometimes we call it. But are we really going through this collective decision making, design making, and are we going by majority opinion? I think you have to think. Say, in many places they talk about majority opinion. You can think in all these meetings. I think they ask you to discuss. Sometimes if you differ with them, and you know very well, they try to keep all those things at the back of their mind, and they will have grouse on you. I think they'll be thinking, when I made proposal, you are opposing on all these things. I know these things, they lead to conflicts. Collective design making, decision making by consensus. Then our expectations are not met. You join an organization to become something, and when these things are not met, you get into conflict. Unresolved and suppressed conflict. There are people, they do not want express any dissent or difference of opinion. Always they think we have to go by that principle. I think always people, they talk about two principles in the organization. The principle number one is boss is always right. Then they say the principle number two is if he is wrong, follow rule number one. That is how the group, and they follow this principle like anything. But several times they'll be following all sorts of conflict, and they suppress all these things. One day they erupt like a volcano in the organization. Now, those are the reasons you can write. Many times they ask you what is conflict, what are these antecedents to conflict, what are the reasons for this conflict. At the time, you can write these reasons for conflict. Then I think without telling what is this conflict, I'm going on talking about transition of conflict. Then I spoke about antecedent of conflict. But I didn't tell you what is this conflict. Now we are coming to that one. What is this conflict? Very, very simple thing. When I think that you are coming in my way, when I perceive that you are coming in my way, then I think there's a conflict. Here I have given very clearly conflict when one party perceives. Here the word perceives is very important. See, the word perceive, it is such a powerful word that sometimes what happens, I perceive, but what I perceive may not be correct. See, normally, this is what happens. We think, but our thinking may be wrong, right? We are right, yet we are wrong several times. So right, yet we are so wrong in our thinking. I do not know how many times you've experienced these things. You think you are correct, but in fact, when you verify, you will come to know that you are wrong. So, such a powerful, I can tell you, idea we have in this perception. So, when one party perceives its interests are being opposed or set back by another party, then we can say that there is conflict in the organization. It may not be true, but the other person thinks in that way. What can you do? And conflict arises, that and they won't tell also, and that kind of thinking will be going on, it will be going on and on like that till you retire. Maybe a day will come, they will realize, Array, I was wrong, I was thinking about this person in a wrong way and other things. That's very beautiful definition, important definition. Then the second way we can think, a breakdown in the standard mechanism of decision making. Several times you need to make decision, and board, I think there's a meeting goes on, and 50% this side, 50% that side, and they're unable to go forward. And that kind of situation, we call it as a conflict. Then James Webster talks about conflict is a disagreement between two or more organizational members or groups. It is a disagreement. It arises from the fact that they must share scarce resources. When I use this word, scarce resources, you can think about all sorts of resources that are there in the organization. Long back, I read one story. There was a teacher. The teacher happens to be too good, excellent teacher. There are two colleges. Both the colleges want him to teach in their college only. And ultimately, I'm sorry to say, that teacher was beaten up and was admitted in a hospital. See, normally, resources you are thinking only in terms of water and money. But nowadays, human beings are very important. Sorry for giving this example. This has come, and the whatever example I told, it has come. I think I watched this one on the television also, video clipping. Now you have to share resources which are scarce. It could be money, it could be material, it could be water, it could be finances, it could be people, anything that when you have to share, and I think sometimes the problems will come. Or work activities. I told about interdepartment, interconnected, overlapping activity, and or from the fact that they have different status, what say positions. Is that position is bigger or my position is bigger? Say in university also we have different positions. Sometimes people they think, is that one is a bigger position or this one is a bigger position? So status, goals, values, perception. Because of all these things, when there's a disagreement, conflict they arise in the organization. There's one more small definition I'll give. It is an expressed struggle. He called it expressed. Sometimes it won't be expressed also. Between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce rewards, interference from the other party in achieving their goals. They are in a position of opposition in conjunction with cooperation. So these are the definitions that are given regarding conflict management. Then Stephen Robbins says, conflict happens to be a process. We are going to discuss this process. That begins when one party perceives that another party has negatively affected. Here the word perceives, very important. It perceives that another party has negatively affected or is about to negatively affected. I think sentence is repeated. A few words are repeated. There's something that first party cares about. Okay. For a long time, I was thinking to remove. Okay. It is a process that begins when one party perceives that another party has negatively affected or is about to negatively affected something the first party cares about. That is known as conflict. Now, this conflict, what are the features of conflict? It occurs between two or more parties. Okay. Normally, people say that conflict occurs between two or more parties. I'll put it the other way. Sometimes the party could be one because of two reasons the conflict could be there. Do you think to have a conflict, two parties, two people are required? Can someone
Yeah.
respond?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes. But I tell you several times, two people are not required. Within you, there will be conflicts. Two kinds of thinking. Okay. Um, Let us say you are there, you got promotion to two good places. Which one to accept? Or you got a seat in two beautiful institutions, good institutions. Where to go? There is no person who is competing with you. But within you, that conflict happens or arises. But there are two views. Sometimes, many times we tell in the organization there are two or more parties, they need to get this conflict. Then, as I told you, this conflict arises because of two perceptions, two kinds of thinking. This conflict many times refers to a deliberate behavior you are exhibiting. This conflict can exist either at latent, in other words, there is something is going on inside, but you won't exhibit. Okay, let me wait for some time. Things will be all right. Or this conflict could be an overt level. That means it appears outside. We need to understand that it is different from competition. In the competition, I am not interfering. That person is competing and I am competing, but I am not going in that person. So both of us are going in the same direction. Whoever comes first and he'll get this particular thing. But in the case of conflict, it is not like that. I try to interfere. Then, in the exam, one more thing they ask you, what are the functional aspects of conflict? What are the dysfunctional aspects of conflict? Discuss the functional and dysfunctional aspects of conflict. Then we are expected to write something about the positive aspects of conflict and some of the negative aspects of conflict. Okay, again, there are certain things what a person considers as a positive. I'll try to think from a different way and I'll put it the other way also. Now, the first positive aspects of conflict is you are having everything. You are not revealing that conflict. So a lot of tensions will be there when you have this conflict. But when the conflict comes out, when you discuss that one, when you resolve that one, we will we will be relieved of the tension that we are experiencing. Many times, what happens, many times what happens, we will come to know whatever we are thinking is not correct. Unnecessary conflicts will be having. Even I have experienced. There are some movies also in that one they were showing. I think in one particular movie, I think you have to remember, there was a fight between Amitabh Bachchan and there was Gabbar Singh. What is Gabbar's name? Amjad Ali Khan. There's Gabbar Singh actor now, who acted as Gabbar Singh. What is his name? Can someone tell?
Sir, in Telugu, Pawan Kalyan.
No, no, not Pawan Kalyan. In Sholay movie, he acted. Sholay movie? I think Amjad Khan or some name is there. Now, in one movie, both of them fight and they try to kill each other, thinking that both of them are loving a particular lady. But ultimately, they will come to know Amitabh Bachchan was not in love with that particular lady. And he feels so bad. I'm fighting, I'm considering you that you are my competitor or I have a conflict with you. Then the last dialogue, something will be there. So, what we are trying to tell you is when you have a conflict, when you resolve it, I think tensions will be released. I think I have experienced these things also. Then, when you have conflict, then you start thinking in a new way how to overcome this problem. See, sometimes there are scarce resources and you are unable to get for your organization. And instead of that particular resources, can I do with something else? Can I? So a creative thinking will start when there is a conflict. Then this conflict, what it does, it makes you to change, to bring change in the organization. There are several stories. Uh, I read about them. Because there was conflict, they started, they got into innovation, they got into this creativity, they have brought all together new products. Then, when you have conflict, your real weakness, your team's real weakness will come out. What is our weakness? Why? How to overcome? Why we are facing this particular kind of situation? I think we will be in a position to identify our weaknesses. Then, as a group, we become very strong. The cohesiveness in the group will increase. Then you start challenging many things. You start challenging many things when there's a conflict. And when you have a conflict, when you sit across the table, start discussing, it clarifies the real issues. As I told you, there are um, several things and several aspects which we consider them as a matter of conflict or concerns of conflict, but we will come to know all those things are immaterial. So the real issues will be clarified when there is a conflict. These are the positive aspects of conflict. Now, what are the dysfunctional aspects of conflict? What are the aspects of conflict? That means which work as a negative. Now, a little bit of conflict is always good, but when conflict becomes too much, and the first 3 points, there's lot of discontentment among people when conflict becomes too much. And with the discontentment, people started doubting others. Creation of distrust will be there. Whom to believe, whom not to believe, no one knows. Discontentment, distrust, then a lot of tensions it generates. Lot of tension generates. Then, when these things they crop up, I think over a period of time, you are unable to bear and you start leaving the organization that leads to, we use the word labor turnover or attrition rate and all these things. Besides all these things, you are going to divert your energy every day. The last point. What is diverting energy? Instead of focusing on your work, you are diverting your energies on how to give counter to that fellow tomorrow when I go to this office. Your energies are diverted on wrong things. Then goal displacement. The main goal of working in the organization is gone, and this becomes a bigger goal, how to give counter to people, how to face this kind of conflict, how to face that fellow. These things, they become as the main issues. This weakens the organization. This distorts the perception. Once our perception is distorted, I think everything collapses in the organization. So these are the dysfunctional aspects of conflict. All these are very important, let me tell you, from the examination point of view. Now, what are the basic types of conflict? There's one conflict that's called approach and approach conflict. See, in your life, sometimes you are faced with two positive things. Which one to accept? I think, yeah, at several times, at several phases of life, I think in your life, you'll be facing pleasant surprises. You find it very difficult which one to accept. This sort of conflict we call approach and approach conflict. Then, in the same way, sometimes in your life, too painful, too, I think, things which are not good, you'll be facing which one to accept. Two negative things. Then, there are certain conflict, approach and avoidance very easy. So, whatever pleasant we take up, whatever thing is not so pleasant, we won't take up. All these things, they arise in the case of a person, therefore we call them as intrapersonal conflict. Of course, from the organizational point of view, when people, they ask you what are the sources of conflict, whatever I discussed under the antecedents of conflicts, you are going to write and in this way, but you can present in a different way. I discussed about shared resources, technical things, technology you have to share, materials you have to change, then people you have to change, and all these things you need to change. Shared resources, difference in goals, then interdependence of work activities, I told you, then difference in values, our value systems, difference in our perceptions, then individual lifestyles, I told you, incompatibility of goals, then organizational ambiguity, job description, those things are not clear. Sometimes the structure makes you, creates a lot of conflict. I think wrong communication, sometimes overload of communication also results in this kind of conflict. Now, so we have seen why conflict arises, what is conflict, what are the functional and dysfunctional aspects of conflict. Having seen these things, let us go through this. The process of conflict, this one is also very important. Uh, I'll put it the word very, very important from the examination point of view. This will be helpful to us. Now, what is the entire process of conflict? The first stage we call potential opposition or incompatibility. What is potential opposition or incompatibility? There are certain conditions in our organization. I discussed under antecedents of conflict. Now, when these things are present, you have to understand conflict may arise. Number one, you can think about personal variables. You can understand in many organizations, whenever a new recruitment is there, the conflict will be there between younger generation and seniors. Always seniors, they say juniors and newcomers like that, they'll be talking. And the new entrants or new employees, they'll be talking, I think, about seniors in a different way. Then you can also think like this. Let us say in your organization, why I'm talking all these things, I've seen some places. Maybe in your organization, all these days, only men are there. Only boys are there in your college. Now you made that boys' college into co-ed college. Naturally, sir, a few conflicts will be there. It could be because of different generation, genders, and all these things, conflicts will arise. Then communication, as I told you, I can tell you in communication, a lot of things that create conflict. Words, they have different meaning. There are certain principles often we talk. If something has to go wrong, it will go wrong. If something has to go wrong, it will go wrong. Then the second thing always we tell, if a word has different meaning, if a word has different meaning, certainly it will make you to understand in a wrong way. It will convey that word is understood in a wrong way, not in a right way. So if something has to go wrong, it will go wrong. If a word conveys different meaning, it will convey such a meaning which does more harm than good. If something conveys different meaning, it conveys more harm than good. If you understand these statements, I think you'll be recollecting a lot of incidents which have been understood in a wrong way that has led to conflict in the organizations. Then the structures of the organization, sometimes your personality and the structure of the organization, I think there's a lot of incompatibility between these two things. Or sometimes the structure may not suit also, they create conflict in the organization. So the first stage is called potential opposition or incompatibility. When these things are present, remember, there's a possibility for conflicts to arise in the organization. Then stage two, certain things are present. Stage two, it is called cognition and personalization. You understand, cognition, what we do is you think, yes, there could be, you perceive, yes, there could be conflict. But in personalization, you start feeling that one. So the conflicts that we talk about is there's a perceived conflict and there is a felt conflict. You perceive, you may not feel, you perceive. But sometimes you perceive, then you start feeling the conflict. Then when you start feeling the conflict, then all of us have certain intention how to deal with this conflict in the organization. I'll take this slide little further, then I'll try to come back to this process. Now, same thing, potential opposition, cognition, intention, behavior. Now, what are the intention? What are the intention? There is a conflict. What is that you want to do? What is that you want to do? There are two ways that you can think about this conflict, handling the conflict. Would you like to cooperate or would you like to assert? When there is a conflict, would you like to cooperate or would you like to assert? Now, between these two things, I think several intentions will come out. There are some people, they neither want to cooperate nor they want to assert. Then their intention is they want to avoid conflict. Okay. Tortoise, what it does, if someone wants to hold it, it gets into its shell. Okay. Then There are some people, they are too cooperative, they do not want to assert themselves. That is like accommodating style, we call it, or intention. There are some people crack job 50-50. What is 50-50? They want 50% assertion and 50% cooperation. Their intention is called compromising style. And there are some people, they say, no question of cooperating. Whatever I say, that is final. And that style, we call it as a competing style. Now, but there are some people, they are high on cooperation, high on collaboration. All these are, you can say, the intentions people they have. So same thing, we try to put it in this way. Okay. It all depends on how you maintain your relations and other things. Now, same thing, we try to put it in this way. So competing style. When another conflict management approach has not been successful, when no positive change have occurred after some time, when you feel pushed back from those in conflict, you go for this conflicting. Then, as I told you, this avoiding style, when to consider this avoiding style, when you are still undecided on how to proceed, when you don't have resources to devote immediately, when involved parties are experiencing high tension, when it has caused distraction from the team productivity, people they get into this avoiding style. Then compromise style, when you need an immediate solution that may be temporary, when neither party will compromise, when productivity starts to be impaired by the time the conflict is taking, and when there is no solution both will be happy with, and when you want to promote more team collaboration, you get into this compromising style. Then collaborating style, when several people will be impacted by the resolution, when it involves an important relationship, when the interests of all involved in the parties need to be considered, then you get into this collaborating style. Then accommodating style, all these things I have told you just now. When you can't come to a resolution, when your peer is more concerned with the conflict than you, when you are mistaken, or when your peer is more experienced, when productivity has been affected negatively by the conflict, you get into this accommodating style. So these are the different intentions that you are having before you to get into this, to resolve, I think, to deal with this conflict. Now, again, I'm coming back. Now, here I have shown you these are the intentions. What is that we want to do when conflict arises? So, based on our intention, what happens? Our behavior will come out. Overt behavior is parties' behavior and others' reaction, how we behave, their reaction. And based on my behavior, these are the intentions. You may be having intention, but you may not be having behavior. Intention, they have to get into behavior. When it gets into behavior, then the real outcome will come. That real outcome could be increased group performance or decreased group performance. These are the stages of conflict. This is what we call the process of conflict in the organization. I've shown all these things again. Now, that is one of the questions people they ask me, what is the process of conflict in the organization? Then the next question they can ask you is, how do you manage conflict in the organization? What are the conflict management strategies in the organization? We talk about basically two things, as I told you. According to interactionist view, when there is a no conflict, you have to generate conflict. And when there is conflict, when conflict becomes too much, you should have the ability to resolve this conflict. Now, how do you stimulate conflict? How do you generate conflict in the organization? And how to resolve conflicts in the organization? These things we will discuss. Now, why should I generate conflict, or why should conflict stimulation should take place in the organization? A few reasons I am giving. The first reason you might be thinking, I think some of us know, I think that of course, I wanted to take one example, but how people they feel, I do not know. Therefore, I am not taking this example. Um, Sometimes conflicts need to be generated. Why they need to be generated? The first reason is the organization is filled with yes men. No one wants to oppose. Everybody says, I have no complaint. We will go by this decision. And always we think, let us go let us go along with others. If we, though we know something is wrong, if we talk about it, people may brand us something. Therefore, why should we open our mouth? So, organizations filled with S men. Then, second thing is employees are afraid to admit ignorance and uncertainties. See, there is a saying: if you shut your mouth, people they think that you are a wise man. When you open your mouth, all your ignorance will come out. Therefore, there are many people, they won't talk much. I'm not saying all those people who talk much are wise, and all those people, they are, although all those who talk are wise and all those who do not talk, they are not wise. But sometimes I think when something is going wrong, we have to talk. But many people, they don't do it. Employees are afraid to admit their ignorance and uncertainties. Then the third thing is always people, the stress and compromise is stressed in decision making. Then, where managers emphasize cooperation, harmony, and peace. These are the three words, they are very important, but a detailed discussion has to be done. What is the meaning of harmony? What is the meaning of peace? What is the meaning of cooperation? Managers, they overemphasize this one. Then people are afraid of hurting the feelings of others. If I talk how others feel, what others feel, I think people they have got this kind of thinking. That is the reason you have to generate. So people they have to come out from these things. We have to generate conflict. Then popularity is given more importance than technical competency. I think technically is it feasible or not, no one talks. Only popular things they want to talk. Managers unduly seek consensus for their decisions. They say consensus, one opinion, and all these things they talk. Then people show great resistance to change. They do not want to change. Then when there is a dearth of new ideas are not coming up because people they are not opening up. There is unusually low rate of employee turnover. Now, no one is leaving, everybody is happy, but the performance is, of the organization is not up to the mark. Why it is like that? Because the word, we are very happy. So there at that time, I think you have to think something is going wrong with the organization. You should start generating the conflict. When you generate the conflict, new ideas will crop up, and that is how you progress in the organization. I'm not saying always you have to generate conflict, but there are situations which make it necessary for us to generate conflict. We should also understand when to generate conflict, when not to generate conflict. Now, when you generate conflict, what are the strategies? One is manipulating communication. You have to give different sides. Informal communication, grip point communication, all these things you have to release to generate conflict. Restructure the organization, change the organization structure, or change the boss, alter personal behavior, appoint devil's advocate. Who is a devil's advocate? a person is assigned the role of devil's advocate in our meeting. His job is he has to oppose whatever the entire group says. Not only opposing, he has to tell why he's opposing, what are the reasons, he has to tell very clearly. That is the job assigned to devil's advocate. See, when a person is assigned the job, he will come out with his why he's contradicting, what are the things, and all these things. That is the reason I'm not talking about. See, we have this parliament system where we have got ruling party and opposition party. Opposition party, they have to play a constructive role. And if something is going wrong, they have to point out. Same thing we do in this particular thing. So we have to appoint a devil's advocate, and what he does is he will come out with certain the proposals why something should not be done in the organization. That is how you are going to stimulate the conflict. When you stimulate the conflict, don't think that is the end of it. You should have the ability to control this conflict, contain conflict, resolve this conflict. What are the conflict resolution strategy? First is called conflict avoiding strategy, then two, conflict diffusing strategy. Third one, conflict containment strategy. Fourth one is conflict confrontation strategy. Now, within this one, what are the techniques that we can use? We can put them. You have to integrate. You can integrate the organization. You can think about consensus among all the parties. You can expand the resources. You can bring compromise among people, get into negotiation, sit across the table, and try to have exchange your views. Then changing the formal structure of the group, try to change if it's possible, and identification of similar goals and objectives in both the parties, conflicting parties. Try to get into problem solving techniques. Try to impose superordinate goals. What is superordinate goals? We are fighting, it's okay. But what is the ultimate purpose in the organization? Try to smoothen the activities and exercise your command. Tell them this is the final thing. And if it is possible, alter human variables. By doing all these are the techniques that you can employ in resolving the conflict in the organization. And when you are resolving conflict, you have to prove that you understand their sides, acknowledge that you are a part of the problem. Try again, the conversation did not go well. Now, when we talk about types of conflict, you can talk about a goal conflict and a role conflict. We may have conflict regarding the goals that we want to reach, and sometimes conflict arises because of the roles that we are playing. We maybe are working in a pharmaceutical company. I think you have to show good results to your shareholder. At the same time, today people they talk about ESG and all these things, and you have to strike a balance between these two things, and you will face the problem of this role conflict. Then when we talk about levels of conflict, the conflict could be individual level, the conflict could be at organization level, then the conflict could be between different part intra-organization conflict, inter-organization conflict level, you may have this conflict. Then the conflict could be also interpersonal conflict, conflict between two or more persons because of difference in personalities, perceptions, and value system. These things you can solve through transaction analysis, jury window, stroking, and life position. Okay. Oh, okay. Now, Jury Window, it is developed by Joseph Lift and Harry Ingham, and they talk about, based on this thing and what they're telling, they have given four important things. So there are certain things for which you are open, you know about yourself. Certain things you do not know, but others they know about you. There are certain things that you do not know, even others they do not know. Then neither hidden self, that means you do not know, others know it. um, I think there are undiscovered self. No one knows about these things. I think I need to. So blind area talks about things that you do not know about yourself but others do. Hidden area, things you know about yourself but others they don't know. Unknown area, things that neither you nor others know about yourself. Open area, things that you and others know about you. Now, what we need to do through communication and by understanding ourselves, by being open, I think we can improve ourselves and we can try to solve the problems in the organization. So, I think with this, I'll stop. There are other things also like life position and other things. With this, I'll stop because I think it's 6:59. Sorry, 6:59. Suddenly there is stop. Thank you so much. There are other things that I can share, understanding personality and all those things. Um, Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation. You have been too patient, okay, in listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll be sharing this material with Deepak. You can share it with others. Okay.